Hey everybody, it's Jason with Parallel Reality coming back with you today with an article from MRC Newsbusters, America's Media Watchdog, dated April 2nd, and it says PBS/NPR promote nutty Yale professor leaving for Canada to avoid fascism under Trump. So I've mentioned before how I think, for example, on The View, Sonny Hostin is the epitome of highly educated but stupid. Well, that applies to this guy as well, because I've seen tweets from him, and I can tell you right now, he moved to a country that is far more fascistic than what he left. And also, he doesn't really seem to know what fascism is if that's what he did. He basically went, I'm going to go to a far more left-leaning country, which again would be more heading towards fascism, while sitting here and going, oh my God, the United States is becoming fascist. No, dude, you're just an idiot. You're stupid. And why are PBS and NPR being funded at all? They should cease to exist. So it says both those stations are shamelessly demonstrating their leftist broadcasting powers in the wake of going to Capitol Hill and lying about how they're interested in delivering unbiased, nonpartisan, fact-checking reporting. So said NPR CEO Catherine Marr. And check out her testimony in front of Congress. At the time you're hearing this, it was probably 2 weeks ago. It's like a few days ago from when I'm recording it. But that's basically what she said. It's like, and they found out like every single person that works there is a Democrat, but she said that they're unbiased. Like, right. That's like the Dr. Evil. Right. Anyway, back to this article. It says both networks are now promoting leftist Yale professor and self-anointed fascism expert Jason Stanley to explain why he's leaving for Canada because America is sinking into fascism under Trump. And again, cutting government, Trump is a fascist argument is entirely undercutted by the fact that he's cutting government down. He's reducing the size of government. Fascism requires large government. This is the literal opposite of that, what Trump's doing. Okay? So this is how this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. So it says on Tuesday night, the PBS NewsHour awarded nearly 7 minutes to Stanley's rantings. There was no opposing view from conservatives, which would begin with welcoming Stanley's departure as making America a saner place. Well, that too, and also just saying he's an idiot. The Stanley is not fact-checked in real time for claiming America is devolving into a fascist regime. Here's how PBS anchor Amna Nawaz began. And she said, Yale University philosophy professor Jason Stanley announced he's leaving not only his school, but the country, to teach at the University of Toronto in Canada. Stanley said he's making the move so he can, quote, raise his kids in a country that's not tilting towards a fascist dictatorship. For more on his decision, Jason Stanley joins me now. Okay, so kids, I'm sorry. You may want to legally emancipate yourself from this guy, from your dad. However you do that in Canada, because your dad is a dumbass. Okay, just throwing that out there. It says Nawaz displayed the covers of Stanley's 2 books on American fascism, and all the questions were softballs. And before I get to this next part, did he have anything to say during the Biden administration when, the Biden administration was flat out telling social media companies what to do during a certain disease that will not be named, like forcing companies to do things, forcing people to do things, like a certain, ouchie in the arm, he didn't say anything. He was completely silent on that. And as I've said in other videos, every time you hear a leftist or a Democrat say something like what this guy's saying, it's always confession by projection. Okay? Is that every time they say that the right is doing something, they have an example on their own side that is almost always far worse. Okay? Such as what I just brought up. So it says it began like this little interview here. So Nawaz says, so you have authored 2 books on fascism. It's a topic you spend a lot of time studying. Your decision to leave has been framed as you fleeing the U.S. That's the word people are using. Is that how you see it? And he says, no, but that as residents with Jewish intellectuals fleeing Nazi Germany in the 1930s. So it's kind of interesting to see that use of the word. And okay, we need to stop with the stupid comparisons as well. What's happening right now is in absolutely no way, shape, or form even remotely comparable to Nazi Germany. But to leftists, there's only, as I've said before, only one war that has ever happened in the history of mankind. For the entire couple 100,000 history of the Homo sapiens species, only World War II happens to be the only war to them that they know has ever happened. Okay? And because they're communists, they're dumb. And everything is fascism to them. So Stanley's claim is that democracy ends when a government doesn't fund Ivy League universities where campuses are occupied by nasty pro-Hamas rallies as if favoring Hamas is favoring democracy. I'm not cutting that out. The Stanley says, when Columbia folded, that's when I thought, okay, I'm just going to look at the probabilities of our institutions folding, our democratic institutions folding. And by that, I mean not just the universities, but the media and our legal system. And I thought, well, maybe they can hold the line, but this is an opportunity. It's a great opportunity. And I think the probabilities are not in favor of the U.S. democracy, or of U.S. democracy. Okay, again, this guy is, and I know, like, if I was to say he's not smart and someone lets you go, well, he's a college professor, I'd say, yeah, that's why he's an idiot. Okay, this guy is dumb, and you can just tell by what he's saying. It's like, dude, do you know, like, what these words mean that you're using? But anyway, it says, on Tuesday's morning edition, co-host A. Martinez, the actor? A. Martinez? Okay. Because that's only A. Martinez I know, says toss the softballs for 7.5 minutes as Stanley dropped the F-bomb. Says the F word came out 7 times or about once a minute. Why is he, isn't morning edition like fascism? I was like, wait, he's saying, yeah, like, F apostrophe, or I should say asterisk K, like on network TV. Like, okay, yeah, I missed the joke. That's on me. So Martinez says, wouldn't it be more helpful in that fight, Professor, for you to stay at Yale to fight that fight as opposed to being in Canada? I'd say no, because he's retarded. Stanley says, I have black Jewish children, and this is what he looks like, by the way, so unless they're adopted or his wife is black, and I don't know, but that'd be interesting. Good combination, though. There are black Jews out there, certainly. Says, and the attacks on DEI are attacks on black people. No, they're just saying that we want merit to rule the day, not have people get jobs based on something that has nothing to do with their ability to do the job. So not only does he not know what fascism is, he doesn't know what DEI is. So he says they're attacking black history. Nobody's doing that. Says they're targeting black people in positions of power. No, they're not. And they're creating mass popular anger against Jewish people by taking Jewish people, by setting us up and saying, we're the excuse for taking down democracy. No, nobody's doing that. I mean, the far right, actually are aligning with you, sir, on this one. And so now he's going to throw out the fact that I'm Jewish instead of going like, hey, I support all the terrorists, but, whatever. And then he continues by saying, and, personally, I'm not going to risk my kid's safety for a political point. Kids, again, leave your dad. He's dumb. And finally, by leaving, I'm making a political point, and nobody cares, dude. You're not as important as you think you are, okay? And you're stupid, clearly. As I'm making the political point that I'm repeating the history of Jewish intellectuals leaving a country in the face of a fascist regime. Well, aren't you going to feel stupid when you realize, oh, wait, there's absolutely nothing about what Trump's doing that even remotely resembles fascism, even in the slightest possible way? He's basically saying, I'm leaving this country because I don't like Trump, is what it is. Okay, but again, he's stupid. And Martinez says, now you've written 2 books on fascism, seeing that history as a cautionary tale. So how much did that play in your decision to leave? And he says, Stanley, well, it played into my decision because my work over the last decade has been calling to the attention to the rise of fascism in the United States. Funny how it always seems to be to people on the right, which people on the right cannot be fascists. It is impossible. Because then you can only write so much. At some point, you have to do something. So his idea is just, I'm going to run away from the problem. So from a non-existent problem, mind you. So the only question that suggested Team Trump's opinion to Stanley that it's fighting campus anti-Semitism drew Stanley's bizarre analogy that Team Trump harping on Islamist anti-Semitism is making Jews unsafe. Yeah, how does that work exactly? Says, what's happening is like what Stalin did in the Soviet Union, setting up large groups of people for popular rage. Says Trump can be both Hitler and Stalin. Well, they themselves would hate being compared to the other. Then PBS and NPR are fine with that in their fact-based and nonpartisan way. I'm not cutting that out again. It says, P.S. PBS also featured this radical professor on Emanpour and Company, as Clay Waters wrote here, and there's a link there if you actually want to go see that. I probably, wouldn't unless you want to be scrubbing your eyeballs or your ear holes for 10 minutes afterwards. So that lasted 19 minutes. So Stanley claimed the history of this will say that Jewish people were the sledgehammer for fascism. Again, just remember, this guy right here is leaving a country because of something that isn't actually happening. And because he's written books on it, this is what the left does. That they go, it's an appeal to authority. Oh, he must be an expert because he's written books, and this is what he's written the books on. But as I've said, as we can see here by the things he said, he doesn't seem to actually know what it is that is fascism. He doesn't know. Okay, so screw this guy. He's a dumbass. And again, he exemplifies highly educated but retarded. So let me know what you think about this in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.